Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Just Talking About Sports. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Ethan.
And Ethan, what are we going to be doing today, good sir?
Just talking about sports.
Yes, sir. Week 13 already. Feels like we were just talking about this a couple of days ago, but here we are. We're that much closer to the big dance in Indianapolis, and we cannot wait to bring that to you as we continue to get closer. But now, let's talk about what's going on now. In comparison to the past few weeks, this was definitely a quieter week. Not as much going on, but there's still some storylines, and we'll get to them. Let's start with the top, though, which has not been a storyline all year long because of two dominant teams. Gonzaga at number 1, Baylor at number 2. Gonzaga has now eclipsed 20 wins without a loss, which is insane, but not as insane when you look at their conference. Baylor is 17-0 and once again dealing with COVID issues. This team has been riddled by them all season long, and it has killed them because with those games, they'd be number 1 if they were still unbeaten, if they were able to play the games they were supposed to. Number 3, Michigan, they returned to action on Sunday with a good win over Wisconsin. They were losing bad at halftime, but had a major second half led by Hunter Dickinson. And Ohio State remains at number 4. They've proven to be the next big contender in the Big Ten. But guess what? So is Illinois. Ethan, we got 3 Big Ten teams in the top 5. Just really quickly, what are they doing right?
Let's just say that they have some of the best talent that we've ever seen in the Big Ten ever. I mean, each team has some standout players. You got Dosunmu and Kofi Cockburn on Illinois. You got Michi and you got E.J. Liddell on Ohio State. Then you got the freshman. I'm forgetting his name right now. Please save me. And Hunter Dickinson. Sorry.
There you go. Yeah,
I almost saved myself there. And then Michigan overall just has been playing solid, and it's a 3-man race for this Big Ten right now, and it's a very interesting one, very heated because according to the AP poll right now, all 3 teams are in the top 5. So I think this Big Ten team, they're all playing very well. They're all winning the games in the Big Ten. They're spanking the rest of the people in the schedule, and it's been up and down for all these teams. But we got a big game this week, so one of those teams is going to fall. Just going to be a matter of which one.
I think something of note that I have to bring up, Northwestern has had the hardest schedule in NCAA basketball history this season. They're 6-12. If they win out on their schedule, they could be the first ever at-large below 500 team to have a legitimate consideration to get into the tournament. Something I have to bring up because of how good that conference has been this year. Northwestern's lost 11 straight. See if they can get one this week, but their schedule doesn't get much better. Houston's at number 6. I told you last week I did not like that they dropped as hard as they did after a loss to Eastern Carolina, especially considering how good East Carolina's been this year. But Houston got it on track quickly with a good win over South Florida on Wednesday. And we'll stop right here for our first time, technically second time, whatever you wanted to count the first part. Virginia Cavaliers at number 7. They've been a great team all year long, and they clearly are not hungover from their championship just a few years back. And Ethan, what is it about this Virginia team that makes them so special?
Their defense, because they are extremely good at keeping teams under 60, or under 60, even under 50 points. Teams that they've been playing the last 4 games that they played, most points they've given up, 66 points. That's unbelievable. And even in the loss that they had, only gave up 65. So this team does not give up that many points per game. That's how this Virginia team has been built for years. And it looks like at the start of the year, they were struggling to finish games. And now they're finally, I think, getting things together. I mean, besides that one choke against Virginia Tech, this team has not lost since the game against Gonzaga. So that shows you how beefy this team has been in terms of being able to play very, very well. They're on a 4-game winning streak, and they have a little bit of an interesting schedule coming up. They got Florida State, who is ranked right now, and they have Duke, and that is in Duke too. So a little bit of a rougher schedule that could lead to some upsets. But I think right now this Virginia team with players like Hauser and Huff, between those 2 guys, they're averaging both above 13 points per game. And for them, like, they're not a high-scoring team. Like, no matter what, they have a great defense, but they're not a high-scoring team. But because their defense is so well, they don't have to score that much to win. So I think this Virginia team has got it in terms of a top 10 team, but rough schedule headed up. We'll see if they can be able to push through.
Virginia and Florida State, the only teams going head-to-head, the only ranked teams in action tonight. That is Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time. Get ready for that one. Interesting to see what that will happen. So, number 8, Alabama Crimson Tide. The SEC, and you'll hear this later, we have very different stances on the SEC, me and Ethan. One of us thinks it's really, really good, and the other one thinks it's really, really bad. And we'll discuss it later, but when you put up 115 points in a regulation game in college in only 40 minutes, that shows how good Alabama is. I don't think there's any questioning that. We said this last week. Here we go again with who knows who the best team in the SEC is. 2 weeks ago, we thought it was Tennessee. Last week, we thought it was Missouri. And this week, it's resoundingly Alabama. The SEC is just crazy. But if there's one team to count on in the SEC, it's Alabama. Oklahoma's at number 9. Big win in double overtime over West Virginia. And they are lucky that Baylor game got postponed. They escaped with one there, let me tell you. And then we'll stop here with perhaps the most overrated team in college basketball this season. Do you agree with me on that, Ethan? It's Villanova here at number 10.
A little overrated, I think, is a little bit of a stretch. I mean, this Villanova team has already, their number one struggle, in my opinion, has been able to get games in because they've had so many COVID issues. It's just been unbelievable, and it's been so hard for this team to stay consistent and be able to play because anytime they try and get on a win streak, they get COVID, and then a few games later, boom, they drop one against St. John's. They win again. Oh, guess what? More postponement. And then magically, boom, they drop another one against Creighton. This Villanova team, I think the Big East, it's been a rough year for the Big East. A lot of developing years as we lost many of our, at least the Big East lost many of their players, at least star players that they used to have in there. And lots of their talent has left for, I guess, NBA and other reasons. So that left kind of a hole for many of the people to fill. And we're trying to figure out if this Big East is still the same as they were last year. And to be honest, I don't really think they are. I mean, I know Villanova has been up there for a long time, and they are the clear leader of the Big East, which I think still means they should be a top 10 team. But I think saying that they're the most overrated team in basketball, I think there's some other ones that I think I'll get to later. But I think this Villanova team, they have the talent in there. They have Robinson Earl and Gillespie. Between those two guys, and even Jermaine Samuels, those three guys on this team are solid players, and being coached by one of the best coaches in basketball. I mean, to be calling them one of like an overrated team, I think that's a little bit of an overstatement, but I mean, they're having a rough stretch. They just need to get games in and continue to prove that they are one of the better teams, and they'll be able to figure themselves out and get ready for March Madness.
Yeah, Villanova does have one of the best coaches right now. You're right. You're totally right. I say overrated because they're worse than Houston, and we rip on Houston a lot. We do. It's just natural because, Houston's in this nobody conference, but Villanova's in the Big East. Is that better? I'm serious. That's not a joke either. I think the Big East is dead. And I don't know if it's going to last. I don't know.
I will admit, for this year, it's going to be bad. Next year, I guarantee you the Big East will be 10 times better.
Marcus Howard is a big name. Eric Paschal, now we're starting to feel the effect of him leaving Villanova. Sadiq Bey was a huge loss for the Wildcats. They're still trying to pick up the pieces of what they've lost over the years. The Big East is too. UConn never recovered from Kemba Walker. These are just examples. Mm-hmm. Like, there are plenty of teams in the Big East that have lost a lot of key pieces over the years.
Miles Powell, you're also forgetting.
Yes, thank you. Miles Powell, I only forget him because he never went pro, which is why I feel like that name is lost in the chaos, if you will. Mm-hmm. But you look at so many successful players that have gone pro from the Big East, and you look at the talent level now, and you really only see a few players that you can legitimately see being stars in the NBA. And even then, Robinson Earl is a fantastic college player, but I don't know how well his game's going to translate to the NBA. And that's no disrespect to him. It's just he plays old fashioned. In today's NBA, that is not a key piece. Look at Andre Drummond getting thrown around like a bag of chips. All right, we'll move on. Iowa Hawkeyes are at number 11. We said it was a 3-team race in the Big Ten. We used to think that Iowa was the team. They're not anymore, but a good week this week. And it showed just how over Michigan State's run is in the Big Ten because they just got smacked around. Texas is at number 12. You want to throw in a hat for one of the most overrated teams in college basketball? I think this is a one me and you can more agree on, I think, a little bit. Texas is just, it's tough. It's a tough conference in the Big 12, but they definitely have not played well. A couple of good wins, but they have not played great. West Virginia moving up after a loss, but granted, it wasn't double overtime in a well-fought game to Oklahoma, and they did just beat Texas Tech on Tuesday, so I think that those balance out. And Creighton moves up 5 spots. We're not going to talk about them because we talked a lot about Villanova in the Big East already, but the gap is officially closed. Creighton is a game ahead on Villanova in the Big East now, mainly because Villanova has not played enough games to take the lead in the division. So it's super tough there. Then we'll stop here at Texas Tech, the Red Raiders. This was a tough week for Texas Tech, but I don't know if it warranted an 8-spot drop. Texas dropped from number 7 to number 15. West Virginia smacked them around. And this is the killer point, and I think the one point everybody's going to not mention. Their game against Baylor got postponed. They did not play well against West Virginia. It was a clean sweep. Sean McNeil dropped 26 on their heads, and Matt McClung only dropped 17 on poor shooting from the floor. It just isn't good enough when you're not shooting well, and Texas Tech struggled with consistency all year. And not in terms of like being good and then being bad. They just struggle in consistency of shooting the ball efficiently. And we're seeing it catch up to them now. And plus, their big game on the schedule, their prove it wrong game against Baylor, may not be played. And that is a huge loss for Texas Tech. And I think that in itself, their prove it game not happening is the reason that they've dropped so hard, because they needed that game to show how real they were. And they're not going to get that shot. So Texas Tech's going to go into the tournament with not a lot of momentum and a 4 or 5 seed that can easily be targeted for a major upset early on. Texas Tech doesn't have the pieces they used to have, and Mac McClung can't take them everywhere. No disrespect to Texas Tech, but you needed that game against Baylor. And now that it's gone and may not come back, I think that's a crusher.
Yeah, I think with this Texas Tech game, like you said, that Baylor game was the crusher. Although I think for them, in terms of the rest of their schedule, it's looking a little bit better than at least a little bit easier. They have TCU that they have Kansas, who's finally back up into the rankings. But I think for the most part, Texas Tech is the type of team that sits. They're the ones who people want them to forget about, because we all forgot about them last time they made the tournament, and at least in my opinion, people didn't pay as much attention. They got a 3 seed, made it all the way to the national championship. So I think this is where Texas Tech likes to sit, is they want to be good enough so that people recognize them, but or give them somewhat of respect, but they don't recognize them off the top of their head as like the best team. And then they'll be able to create a run and continue to surprise people, use the energy that they have like they had last year. I know they're in a tough schedule in the Big 12, and that's why they're struggling right now. But I think this team has the defense and the mindset to be able to come back. I mean, their head coach was fired up during that West Virginia game, so that shows that they have some spirit and they have the will to try and keep winning. So, despite these losses, I think Texas Tech will be back. Just give them time.
I would agree. I just don't know if it's going to be in enough time this season. We'll see. Everything can happen, but I don't know. Texas Tech can make something happen. They did a couple years ago in the tournament, but I just don't know. I'm back and forth with them. Florida State's at number 16. You and I were a little surprised seeing that they didn't go up higher, but there weren't a lot of teams that lost in the middle tier of the top 25. And quite frankly, they almost lost to Wake Forest. And so in Florida State, the ACC in itself is having major COVID issues of recent. They haven't had a chance to play a lot. Virginia Tech, their game got postponed. Boston College having issues. So they head in fresh but rusty into a Wake Forest game that they should have won by a lot and barely won. They play Virginia tonight and Virginia Tech on Saturday. Ugh. They got back-to-back brutal tests at home. And even if they lose one of those and win the other, they're going to move up or stay right as it is. So this is a go big or go home week for Florida State. You don't have much to lose here. Make it happen. Then we move on here, and we'll stop quickly at USC. The Pac-12 this year is nowhere near as good as it's been in recent. Yet we still have 5 teams supposed to make it in the Pac-12, which for some reason
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense at all. But After so much question of who really is the top Pac-12 team, there is no question anymore who that is. Everybody forgets who's on this team in USC. It's going to be none other than number 2 pick, Evan Mobley. And that man is an animal. He has single-handedly carried USC to a vastly successful season of 17 points and 9 rebounds, vastly leading both categories for USC. This team is still a top-notch defensive team. They come in there in the top 15 in defensive efficiency rating. USC will be a team to watch 100%. They're going to be your 4 or your 5, which is in contrast to Texas Tech, that I think could go all the way. This team is built for success, and they have a player who could go pro now and be a big factor in the league the way Evan Mobley is. He is a huge talent, and he helps this team. Without him, they don't go anywhere, but with him, they are vastly successful. I compare USC to Iowa. Iowa has more surrounding pieces to Garza, but better surrounding pieces, not more, better surrounding pieces, but USC may have the consistency factor that Iowa doesn't have. USC has not only won majority of their games, but they've made sure it was a big victory. And so watch out, because USC is going to be there come March.
Yeah, I know I said it last week, which is how good, or at least I was the one that brought up and wanted to talk about USC last week, but I think this team is just continuing to prove that they are the sole and reliable leader of the Pac-12. Once again, how the heck Pac-12 is going to have 5 teams there? Out of my mind, but I think that, like I said, like you just said, with the USC being able to just spank teams like it's nothing, yeah, the games that they've played recently have not been close. I mean, it's kudos, I guess, them, but it's also the fact that they're playing in such a garbage Pac-12 this year, in my opinion. But I think this USC team is going to continue to keep going well. I really liked your analogy between Iowa and USC. I think it really is a good comparison because they run the offense solely through the one player, and that is Evan Mobley on this USC team, just like Iowa kind of runs their offense through Luka Garza. And I'm just really excited to see what USC has in store. It's been a while since USC's been this good and this ranked, so I'm just hoping to see what Evan Mobley and how far this team could really go.
Agreed. USC was a projected 10 seed last year, never got really a chance, and they didn't really have like key superstar players at the time anyway. UCLA, Oregon, Colorado, and Arizona are the other 4 Pac-12 teams supposed to get into March Madness on at-large bids. They're having good seasons, but none of them are consistent at all. And UCLA has lost 3 of 4 and is dealing with a massive spread of injuries. Otherwise, UCLA would be right here. So let's move on. Number 18 is Virginia Tech. They are having COVID issues. They did not play a game this week, and they do not move. Good play. Tennessee has dropped again to number 19 because, once again, Tennessee looks really good for a hot week, and then just a second later, they'll get smacked by a team that isn't ranked in the SEC that nobody's talking about, LSU. Oh, wait, isn't that exactly what's happening at number 20 with Missouri? Oh, Ethan, you want to talk about this one? Go for it, buddy.
Yeah, I know I said it earlier, but there's one team I want to talk about when you brought up the most overrated team, and I think by far, and I've been a firm believer of it this entire season. I mean, you can call me a hater, but I think this Mizzou team is one of the most freaking rated teams in college basketball. You're telling me a team like last week that was 10th ranked in the nation would go out and lose to 2 straight unranked teams? Yeah, that doesn't seem like a 10th ranked team to me. I mean, you could argue that, Arkansas is now ranked again, but still, they have not been able to be consistent in any sort of factor. They were destroying Alabama last week and then ended up almost choking the game, survived just barely last minute, and only won by 3 points. This team does not win soundly. This team does not win clean. I mean, their players aren't really averaging anything special. You got Pinson and you got Tillman, but besides that, that's nobody else on that team that's consistent. And it's just, I think this Mizzou team is one of the teams to be careful of and be very aware of when you see them as a 4 or a 5 seed in March Madness, because if they do end up getting like a 5 seed, I'd be taking the 12 with my eyes closed no matter what team is there, because I don't really believe in this team as much as much as a hater on them, sounding much as I hate on them. I just don't think consistently wise and just how they've been playing. They're not a fun team to watch. Yes, their defense is pretty good and they've been able to hold teams, But when you go and look at games like, the TCU game gave up 98 points to unranked TCU and almost lost to Kentucky too. Their resume is just getting worse and worse as the games go season. I mean, lucky for them, they're not versing a single ranked team the rest of the season, so they'll be able to breeze right through it. But I just don't believe in this team, and I think they need to get, I guess, a little unrecognized a little bit more.
Well, just because there isn't a ranked team left on their schedule doesn't mean they don't have a tough game. Ole Miss is putting in trouble in the SEC. I've said it already, I think, today. And Missouri will have to play them next Tuesday. They play Georgia on Tuesday in Georgia. Georgia has only one home loss this season, and that home loss came to Vanderbilt, which we're not even gonna ask. Wisconsin is number 21. Briefly, let's just get into this. We hate this move. We think this is terrible. We talked about this already. You lose to Michigan by 12, and we don't move. Explain.
Like, you tell me a team could just go and just lose like that, and it's not like they won. They didn't beat anybody big. They beat Nebraska. Congrats. They have one win in the Big Ten. Wow, that's deserving of not being moved anywhere, right?
Their only win in the Big Ten, by the way, came against Penn State by 1 point. Rest in peace to all Penn State fans, by the way. But Wisconsin's schedule is not easy either. You got to play Iowa, then at Northwestern. I don't know. Then Illinois, then at Purdue, then at Iowa. They are only going to be favored in one game left this season. Wisconsin could easily walk out with 10 or 11 losses in the Big Ten and have to fight for their lives in the tournament, in Big Ten tournament. Number 22, baby. Loyola Chicago. Let's talk about this really quickly because me and you are both big-time Missouri Valley fans, and this game's on ESPN2 on Saturday and on Sunday. Saturday, I watched the whole game. And my takeaway points are that Cameron Kortwig is one of the best players in the country. He's got
the stash, stash, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. He's dominant. He's put up double-doubles in 9 of his last 10 games, and he knows. He's like Dennis Rodman. Click, go that way. Click, go this way. He knows where to get the boards. He's averaging 15 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He leads the team in every statistical category, except for steals. But what he is able to do to this team is the only reason why they're still alive. Loyola breathes off this guy. And guess what? That's a 3.0. We've got Iowa, you've got USC, and then you have Loyola. You have a power forward. They're all power forwards. You have a power forward who leads the team in almost everything. Garza is the best because he has the best surrounding pieces. Mobley is second. He doesn't have that many surrounding pieces, but enough to keep that team very good. And then there's Krutwig, who's literally by himself. So you have all three. Loyola is going to get in this tournament if and only if they don't choke like they have so many years in a row now. They lost to Drake yesterday in overtime by 1, which, by the way, is a massive, massive victory for Drake. You have no idea how important that game is to their chances of making the tournament. They now essentially should get in no matter what happens, which is crucial. But Loyola, they should be in. They just got to get 1 of 2 wins on Southern Illinois and make sure you beat Valpo, and then you're good. I don't think anything else can stop them at this point. Loyola's looking good. They're going to head into the tournament, by far the highest seed they've ever been. But I almost still don't think this team is as good as it was when it was an 11 seed and nobody was talking about them. I still don't think they're as good as they were. Loyola's a fantastic team. Krutwig is unbelievable. The growth we've seen from freshman to senior year is unbelievable. I just don't know how far it's going to take him.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I just got to say the games were finally on Saturday. Who needs Valentine's Day when you got Drake versus Loyola? And it did not disappoint because first game was on Saturday. That was a complete blowout, which kind of secured, like you said, Loyola's spot in it. And then Drake, obviously, like you said, too, won in overtime by 1 point. It was very an interesting last game because neither team wanted to win that game towards the end of the game because Drake had 2 straight shot clock violations and Loyola pretty much lost the ball or pretty much got blocked 3 straight times. So, and that was in the final minute of the game. So it was interesting to watch because nobody wanted to win. But Drake being able to pull that off is huge for them. And for Loyola's sake, I still have hope in this team. I mean, the Arch Madness, you never know what Arch Madness. Remember, I'm saying Arch Madness. Never ceases to disappoint with everything because, I mean, if things stay how they are, we might as well throw a chance at 3 teams because we know none of these teams none of them ever win in the Arch Madness anyway. And Bradley finds a way to sneak in. They've done it 2 years in a row. Why not make it 3? Let's get 3 Missouri Valley teams in here. Let's create chaos in March Madness. But I'm really loving this Loyola team. Like you said, Cameron Krutwig is just an absolute beast. I mean, nobody gives enough credit to the other guy that they have on their team, in Ahir Ugwak. He had 20 points against Drake in
Drake
that
the
one
first time, right?
and he's been able to put up a bunch of points too for them. So he's right behind Cameron Krutwig. He's basically Krutwig just uses him as a guy, or Krutwig gets it down low and then Ugwak comes from behind, just slams it down and brings the momentum back in their favor, and they keep going. But I'm just loving the overall team and the Loyola team. I think they got a bright future and cannot wait to see them in March Madness. Now that they've for the most part have clinched it. Knock on wood, they've clinched March Madness.
Agreed with that. You know, I'm excited. I think the Missouri Valley is going to walk out with 2, not 3. And that is factoring into the fact that we may still see a Missouri Valley team not named Loyola or Drake win. Because I do believe that if Drake gets knocked out early in Arch Madness, they're not going to make it. So they have a lot to play for. Loyola's the same way too, though. If Loyola jumps out first round and gets destroyed by for God's sakes, let's say if it's Evansville, if they get knocked out by Evansville like that, that's a problem, and it might cost them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to watch for. This could get interesting in the Missouri Valley. We will always follow it. It's right around where we are, so we'll keep an eye on that. Let's move on quickly to the last 3 before I cover something special at the end. Kansas is back. Some of us think that's a good thing.
Darn it.
Some of us think it's a bad thing. But I do believe that Kansas has earned it. Huge win over Oklahoma State, and it wasn't close. They showed, hey, we may not be as good as we used to be, but we're still Kansas. And remember when we thought they had a down year with it was the round 2018, I think, when they played Northeastern in the first round, and they just smacked them around. Let's just be clear. Kansas is still here. And as long as they are coached the same way that they have been by Bill Self, and as long as they are as good as they've been, that consistency factor, Kansas will be a force in the tournament, whether you like it or whether you don't. Arkansas just had 3 AP poll votes last week. They're on fire. Arkansas and the SEC has now thrown their hat into the ring. Hey, there's Tennessee, there's Missouri, there's Alabama, but start talking about us. We want some credit. And Arkansas now has officially pretty much locked up their tournament spot. They play Alabama next Wednesday. If they can win that game, then anything is possible in the SEC. And then at number 25, no Malachi Flynn, no problem. San Diego State is back in the rankings with only 4 losses. And I'm so happy to see this because they finally I really hope they're going to get their chance to play. Even if it's not nearly as good as it was last year, but as long as they get their chance, all is well in the world, in my opinion. There was a couple of things I wanted to do here. Belmont is 22-1. Can we just talk about that for a second?
22-1.
22-1. We are witnessing SF Austin 2.0. Belmont has once again torn it up. They are in the Ohio Valley, famously known for Murray State and Ja Morant. Belmont's had some players over the years, Dylan Windler, and there's plenty more that I will not name. But Belmont's there, and they're at 22-1. You guys better watch out for them. They're sitting right outside. Hopefully they get in if they can keep winning. Another team I want to quickly bring up, and it's for a fun fact, is UC Santa Barbara. They got 2 votes this week. It is the first time since 1997 that any team in the Big West Conference has had an AP vote, period. So that within itself should be celebrated. Watch out. I don't think they're going to get an at-large, even if they don't win their conference. That one's too far out there. But watch out. They could be something. They could make some noise, 11 or 12 seed if they can keep moving. So watch out for them. All right. That's all we got. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. Hope you guys have a great short week, depending on where you guys go to school or work or what have you. Until then, we'll be here just talking about sports. Take care, everybody.